Good morning and welcome to Different Strokes Virtual Conference. I'm Laura McMillan and I'm the Marketing Manager for Different Strokes. It is brilliant to have you all here at our first session. This session is just a part of a series of webinars that we will be doing all week at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. every single day. I'd really like to thank our sponsors, Bolt, Bird & Kemp, for their support with this. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of virtual housekeeping with you before I hand you over. This session is being recorded, but only the people who will appear on camera are me right now and Austin. So if you can give us a wave, Austin. So if you're in your pajamas, you're not visible, you can sort of breathe a sigh of relief. Now, I'd like to draw your attention to two functions that you may wish to use during the session. One is chat. So if you go to the bottom of your screen and press chat, can you let us know where you're from? I'm in Milton Keynes, which is not very glamorous today. So you just go to the chat function at the bottom of your screen. Oh, Southampton, Ashford, oh, Chicago, USA. Sterling, oh, brilliant. So we know it's working, that's great. West Yorkshire, oh, everywhere. Okay, and the second is the Q&A function, which is in the middle of your screen as well. If you have any questions throughout the session, click the Q&A function in the middle of the screen, and I will either answer you by writing a response or saving it for the Q&A at the end. So now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our lovely speaker this morning, which is Different Strokes CEO, Austin Willett.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's great to have so many people on the call. As Lauren said, I'm Austin and I'm CEO of Different Strokes. And I'd like to start by asking you all a question. So I'm going to launch a poll. And the poll is quite simply, what proportion of strokes do you think occur to working age and younger people? Do you think 1 in 4 occur to working age and younger people, 1 in 10, 1 in 50, 1 in 100, or 1 in 300? And I'll just give that a minute or so for everyone to participate in this. Just waiting for a couple more answers, so just give it a few more seconds. Okay, fantastic. Right, I'm going to end the poll there and I'm going to share the results with you. And by far the most popular answer, 43% think that it's 1 in 4, then 23% think that it's 1 in 10, and some lower amounts for 1 in 50, 1 in 100, 1 in 300. It doesn't surprise me with the audience that we have this morning that the majority of people got this correct. The actual answer is 1 in 4, which I think 43% of the people got that. But what if I was to tell you, when we commissioned some research in 2019 and asked this very same question, only 4% of people got this correct. Only 4% of people thought that 1 in 4 strokes happened to people of working age and younger. And as it happened, a huge 84% of the people who responded to that survey, the general public, thought that no more than 1 in 50 strokes happened to people of working age. Let's just have a think about this for a moment. If there are 6 people in a room, that means that 5 of them, to all intents and purposes, believe that strokes only happen to the elderly in effect, because 49 out of 50 strokes only happen to the elderly, they believe. And it's this misconception that we're absolutely determined to change at Different Strokes. In the UK, there are approximately 100,000 strokes per year, and 25 to 30,000 of these occur to people of working age and younger. But this isn't just a number, this isn't just a statistic. These are all individuals, all of whom have their personal story, all of whom who found their lives turned upside down without warning. I'd just like to share now some examples of these individuals and the people that we work with and support. This is Carl. Carl had a stroke aged 39. His stroke was caused by a PFO, a hole in the heart. As a result of this, he has cognitive issues and neurofatigue, and his stroke has had very much a life-changing impact. He's had to leave a highly successful 18-year police career. We have Maddie. Maddie had a stroke aged 24. In the initial hours after her stroke, she was told by people, including healthcare professionals, that it was impossible for her to have had a stroke because she was too young. She was constantly asked, had she taken drugs? Was she drunk? And unfortunately, this is an experience that we hear that is all too common. We have Bailey. Bailey was just 3 when she had her stroke. And she noticed it more in her teenage years when she started to struggle to come to terms with her stroke more at that age, feeling a little bit different. We have Janice. Janice now works for Different Strokes. But she had a stroke when she was aged 34 and her baby was just 5 months old. And as a result of her stroke, not only did she have to give up her career as a midwife, but effectively she couldn't care for her baby. And finally, we have Carol. And I'm not going to tell you much about Carol because she's going to do a presentation for us at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So I'd really urge you to tune in and hear her really remarkable story then. These are 5 very, very different people at different stages in their life with different sets of needs. Now, we call different strokes primarily to reflect that strokes don't only happen to older people. They happen to people of different ages, of all ages. But I can't help thinking that the word different could be used for all stroke survivors, because ultimately, every stroke survivor has not only been affected in a different way, but has different dreams and aspirations. So it's not a case of simply saying that 25,000 people of working age have a stroke each year. It's much more accurate to say that more than 25,000 individuals have a stroke, and for all of them and their families, they have to come to terms with this in a way that's unique to them. We've been in existence for 25 years now. We were founded by Donald O'Kelly, a stroke survivor in his 40s, who after leaving hospital looked for support for someone his age, discovered that there was none out there, and so founded the charity. And over the last 25 years, we've helped tens of thousands of younger stroke survivors to reclaim their lives. But as our charity, it's always been in our nature to do more and to be more. And this was never more important than the pandemic that we've been going through over the past 18 months. At the onset of this, we had to put emergency plans in place quickly as we were facing a significant fall in income. And we had to reduce some costs, notably by furloughing numbers of staff. But for us, it wasn't simply a case of reducing costs and waiting and hoping for the pandemic to pass. It was a case of saying, this is a time when stroke survivors need us more than ever. What do we need to do to adapt our services? A big concern for us was that stroke survivors, especially those which attended our local groups, which of course had to close, would no longer be able to access exercise sessions, which is so important for ongoing recovery and rehabilitation. We also had concerns about stroke survivors becoming more isolated. We did a survey with our beneficiaries and asked them what they would most like us to do, what we could best do to support. And by far the most significant answer was to create online exercise sessions. So we made some phone calls, talked to some instructors who've been working with our Northampton, Central London and Colchester groups. And 12 days after those initial calls had taken place, we had exercise sessions up and running online. And these sessions have been taking place for 5 days a week for the last 17 months since May 2020. And they run at 5 different levels from Monday to Friday. So no matter what the physical condition of the survivor, there should be at least 1 week, 1 class per week, which is suitable for their needs. And we showcase these sessions through our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. We also introduced Stroke Survivor and Lockdown video diaries, where one of our staff members, Sheila or Janice, would film a conversation with the survivor talking about their circumstances. And we found these to be an effective way to present stroke stories to a wider audience. We've also introduced online networking for survivors. We run these online every couple of weeks. They're exclusively for survivors and provide an opportunity to chat in a small group, usually 6 to 7 people, with no formal agenda, just a chance to talk with other stroke survivors about whatever's on your mind. And these initiatives that we've introduced complement all other parts of our work. For many, many years, we've had local groups where stroke survivors get together to do exercise, for social events, and in general to support one another. And my colleague Caroline will be talking more about groups in a session at 2 o'clock on Thursday. Our online support group is thriving with over 6,000 members. And this provides a great forum for the different strokes community to share their issues and concerns with each other, and also to celebrate their successes in reaching important milestones. For many years, we've had a phone line where 3 office-based staff members, all of whom are stroke survivors, can provide practical help, emotional support, and relevant signposting to people who contact us. Expanding on this, at the start of 2020, we introduced our teen and young adult befriending service. This service is delivered by 5 fantastic young stroke survivors, aged from their early 20s to early 30s, who are available to provide one-to-one befriending on a regular basis to stroke survivors aged 16 to 25, who'd like to talk to other survivors who they can really relate to because they've been through the same experiences. There's a theme that runs through all of this, and the theme is survivors supporting survivors. Because if you're a young stroke survivor, you may be discharged from hospital with lots of needs. You may have cognitive impairment, you may have physical disabilities, you may have fatigue. But often the biggest hurdle to overcome is coming out into a world where 84% of people think that stroke barely ever happens to younger people. And if you were part of that 84% before your stroke, which by definition most people would be, you're going to think that yourself. You're going to think barely anyone else has been in this situation before. And this is something that we hear all the time. Countless survivors have said to us, they thought they were the only person in the world of their age who had had a stroke. And that's where our role is crucial in terms of facilitating peer support and being able to say to the young stroke survivor, there are so many more people that this has happened to than you realise, and we can put you in touch with them. And it's through the support of other stroke survivors that people can begin to reclaim their lives. This theme of peer support is crucial to us at Different Strokes, and these are some of the comments and the feedback that we've received about this. Thanks so much for the chat yesterday. It was so good to hear from someone in a similar situation who knew how I felt and understood and was able with one phone call to give me so much info and people to contact, which has made me feel more positive about the future. The comments were exactly the thoughts and feelings I've been going through since my discharge from hospital. So thanks to everyone for sharing these. I have found this group the best thing in support and information. My stroke was mainly visual and balance at first, but I am now finding lots of other things like head pains, memory problems, poor sleep, etc. I consider myself very lucky though. Keep going and be determined, and I'm sure you'll improve. We are all with you, whatever happens. Different Strokes has helped my recovery because it's good to talk. It's great to relate. I think it is knowing that someone will understand the trials and tribulations of being a stroke survivor, and that there is always someone who will get it. I'd like to show you a few pictures now. These were taken on 5th of September this year when we held our annual abseil. We usually do this once a year, and we hire out the orbit structure at the Olympic Park, where a number of people abseil down this, raising funds for our organisation. The abseil is an important fundraising event for us. It costs us around £250,000 to £300,000 per year to run our central charity. And all of this has to be raised through individual donations, charitable trusts and foundations, corporate support and charity of the year schemes, legacy donations, and fundraising events such as this. And this event raised approximately £15,000, which we're very, very pleased about. But it's not just about the fundraising. The pictures you see here, the majority of people in this picture are stroke survivors themselves, plus also a number of family members of stroke survivors. And over the years, the vast majority of people who've taken part in this abseil for us are those that have direct experience of having a stroke. And this event provides not just an opportunity to raise funds for us, but for stroke survivors to challenge themselves, to feel empowered, and to do something really courageous by abseiling down a 262-foot structure. And for myself and my staff, it's actually a real privilege to be part of this day, to see how much it means to stroke survivors. And when you see the look of pride of faces on family members, especially children who've come along to support their mum and dad to undertake the abseil, it's actually incredibly moving. And as with all our work, this is again a case of putting our beneficiaries, putting stroke survivors at the heart of everything that we do. We're not so much an organisation that looks to do things for stroke survivors, but one that looks to do things with stroke survivors. For many charities, when the pandemic hit, they faced a difficult choice between focusing on providing services for their beneficiaries or focusing on looking after the charity's resources and finances, which no doubt would mean cuts to services. But for us, this wasn't really applicable because the services that we provide and the resources that we require to provide those services, to an extent, go hand in hand. So when we introduced exercise sessions, 2 of the 5 sessions we delivered and continue to be delivered to this day by Anthony, a stroke survivor. When we introduced Stroke Survivor in lockdown videos, we relied on stroke survivors coming forward to tell their story, which proved to be both beneficial for the storyteller and something that many other stroke survivors in our community could relate to. When we introduced networking sessions and looked for facilitators, a number of stroke survivors came forward to volunteer for this. When we held an art and poetry competition earlier this year, a number of stroke survivors used this forum as a way to express their emotions in a very powerful way. And when we put on fundraising events such as March On, which we do each March, or our abseil, which we tend to do in the autumn, or advertised places and events such as the London Landmarks Half Marathon, again, many stroke survivors have come forward to take part in these. And these act as a way not only to raise really important funds for our work, but to empower stroke survivors. And it's this very fact that these two things go hand in hand together with each other which makes this charity so special. Every year we survey our community of stroke survivors to ask what our priorities should be. This year, the 2 highest responses were to increase awareness of younger stroke amongst the general public and to increase awareness of different strokes amongst healthcare professionals. So as we move into 2022 and beyond, this is what we'll be focusing on. The establishment of the ISDNs, that's Integrated Stroke Delivery Networks, across England give us a real opportunity as the ISDNs bring together all elements of stroke care, including life after stroke, and also ensuring that stroke survivors have a central role in the running of the ISDNs. What's crucial for us is to ensure that the voice of younger stroke is heard loudly, and this does provide a real opportunity. But to best achieve this, we'd really like your help. We'll be looking to recruit a network of volunteer ambassadors to really help spread the message of different strokes. Depending upon the available time and area of interest that any individual ambassador may have, we see parts of this role as liaising with the local ISDN, attending local community events to further raise awareness of different strokes, potentially appearing in local media. On the subject of media, we've managed to significantly raise the profile of the charity in recent years and have been name-checked in national BBC reports and in the national press. as well as appearing on local television and on local radio stations, and being very active online and across social media networks. We've really come a long way in this area, but we're conscious that we still have some way to go. We need to continue to raise our profile and continue to shout about younger stroke. And this is something where we'd really appreciate your support. So if you're interested in becoming a volunteer ambassador for Different Strokes, please do get in touch with us, because we'd love to hear from you. And if you're not already a member of our email list, please do sign up for this, because this is a great place for us to be able to keep you updated and to keep telling you about opportunities to get involved with our work. Your support is so important, because not only are the best advocates for our services for people who've benefited from our services, but the best people to talk about stroke, the real experts in knowing what stroke survivors really need, are of course stroke survivors themselves. I'd just like to end really by giving a huge thank you to all of you. I'm lucky to work with a fantastic staff team and board at Different Strokes, but more significantly, we're so grateful for the support that our beneficiaries all give to each other. The last 18 months has been difficult due to COVID, but we've managed to get through this, and we've managed to get through this largely due to the fantastically supportive community that we have in this charity. And going forward, I really look forward to further developing our network of volunteers and ensuring that together we can massively reduce this 84% figure of people who are unaware of younger stroke, and at last make younger stroke much more of a priority. Thank you.
Right, Austin, we have a few questions, if you're happy for me to go through those with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the first one said, Austin just said ISDNs across England. Does DS see itself as an English charity?
No, I mean, we are a UK-wide charity. We have a group in Wales, we have a couple of groups in Scotland as well, and we support people, particularly through our Facebook group. We support people across all of the devolved nations of the UK, and that's Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, as well as England. It happens, I suppose, with the relative populations, though, around 90% of the people that we support are probably in England, because that's approximately the population of the UK, the proportion of that's in England. So the work with the ISDNs that we're doing is obviously is specifically for England as opposed to the other nations. But we're interested in what goes on a lot beyond that. I attend regular meetings of a group called the Five Nations Group, for example, where I get regular updates from people in stroke services across England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Republic of Ireland as well. So we very much keep abreast of what's going on in stroke across all of the nations of the UK.
Fantastic. And then these are some questions that were submitted ahead of the session. The first one is, do you have plans to introduce coaching for stroke survivors through Different Strokes?
We don't have plans to look specifically at coaching, but in this broad area, we are providing counselling for stroke survivors is something that's on our radar, because it has been something we've had a little bit of feedback. And in fact, when we did our last survey, us being able to provide counselling for stroke survivors was quite a popular answer. I think realistically, with our priorities and resources that we have, this is probably unlikely to take place in the next 12 months, but it is something that we're very aware of, and looking ahead in the years to come, we would like to be able to introduce a counselling service if we can find the resources to be able to do that.
Fantastic. And we've got a follow-up question, I think, regarding services in Scotland. So the response is there's no ISDNs in Scotland. Let's correct that. So there is a requirement, I think this person feels, for that to be rolled out across the UK.
Okay. I mean, I'm very positive about the ISDNs, and anything that I mean, hopefully they certainly should provide a great way to support stroke services across England, and anything that can do that across the UK is obviously a positive thing.
Fantastic. Another question that's just come in is the charity to provide guidance to stroke survivors' family members?
We provide, and there's various guidance that we can do for family members. So we provide a lot of written materials in terms of information packs, and often the information in here will be just as relevant for family members as it will be for the individual stroke survivor themselves as well. In addition, specifically for children of stroke survivors, we provide children's resource packs, and we've been doing this for a number of years, and this is a fantastic way to help children of stroke survivors better come to terms with what's happened to mum or dad. And if anyone's available at 2 o'clock this afternoon, we're actually running a session on childhood stroke, which may be of interest to people in this area. So we are conscious of this, and we do try and provide this support to family members as well, yes.
Perfect. And last question, unless anyone wants to submit one now, is what can Different Strokes do to encourage regional advisory groups for stroke research? What should these groups look like? Should they be online? And how do we encourage people to consider getting involved in research?
Okay, I think there's a couple of different issues here. Firstly, regarding research, we would always strongly encourage people to get involved in research if they can. For those of you who are signed up to our newsletter, either via our emailing list or you're on the postal list for our newsletter, our autumn newsletter is due to come out in the next few days, and this actually includes an article about research, and we would strongly encourage people to take part in this. If you go to our website, you'll see details of approximately 20 research projects which are currently active and are looking to recruit people. So please do have a look at that. And if there's an area that's of interest to you, again, I'd encourage you to sign up for that. In addition, there are a couple of potential opportunities that we'll have over the next few months at Different Strokes of engaging in some larger scale research where we're looking to proactively recruit a number of people, a number of stroke survivors to take part in that. So as we have more information on that provided, again, we'll be sharing that with the hope that people will take part. In terms of the regional elements, sometimes stroke research does take place on a regional basis. Sometimes it's more national. But I guess the main thing that's happening from a regional perspective at the moment is what I've touched on regarding the ISDNs. And again, I'd encourage people to try and get involved with this on a regional level. As you know, a number of ISDNs, for example, will have a patient representative group. So that's a great way that people can get involved at a regional level.
Perfect, thank you. And I have just put a link in the chat to our Take Part in Research section of the website. One question is, how can we get into the service? So I think that means, how can people access our services?
I think the most simple way of that is to either go via our website and fill in the contact form there, or you could just email us at info@differentstrokes.co.uk. Perhaps Lauren, if you can just pop that email address in the chat. If you just send us an email, start asking, with the very basic information of what you're looking for, we can then get back to you. We can email you back, or if you leave your number, we're very happy to give you a call back. But that's the easiest way, just to get in touch with us and find out more about what we do.
Okay, we've got quite a few questions still. This one says, what differences are there and what cooperation exists between Different Strokes and the Stroke Association?
The Stroke Association is much larger than we are, and they tend to work across much more of the whole stroke pathway. So they will run more in terms of campaigns. They will tend to do more prevention, for example. And they are also support people across the whole age spectrum as well. At Different Strokes, we tend to be more specialist. A couple of things, we work much more at the life after stroke side at Different Strokes. We don't do a huge amount in terms of prevention work or anything like that. We're much more about life after stroke. A couple of things that make us unique at Different Strokes is we have a particular focus on people who are working age of younger and being able to support them with the specific needs that you have if you're at working age. We also put a massive amount of emphasis on peer support as well. As I touched on in my talk, our whole emphasis is very much about survivors supporting survivors and us being the staff, if you like, of Different Strokes, just helping to facilitate that. What I would say though is I talk with the Stroke Association fairly regularly. We have a very good relationship with them. And of course, we've all got exactly the same aims and objectives, which is to improve lives for stroke survivors.
Perfect, thank you. This one sounds more like a comment, but I think it's a really good one. It says some people have serious mental illness and are under a community mental health team. They have a community psychiatric nurse that they see regularly. I don't know why people who've had a stroke do not have a nurse that sees them regularly. And I think, yeah, we could all agree. I think that would be a fantastic approach for everyone involved. On to our last question is, do you provide help or guidance for people that have had SAH, so subarachnoid hemorrhage, or things that aren't technically strokes because they fall under the banner of stroke?
That's a very good question. I mean, this sounds like this is coming at things more from a medical perspective. And one of the things that we're not at Different Strokes is medical experts. So we tend to avoid providing any kind of significant guidelines on anything that's kind of technical or medical. We would encourage people to seek kind of medical advice for that instead. Our remit is much more around the life after stroke angle instead.
And I did say last one, but we've had a great question come in. It says, could you have a volunteer family member who is accessible by phone to handle family members' emotional needs? In my experience, a stroke turns a family's life upside down, and the whole family needs emotional support to navigate through this.
That's not a role that we have at the moment, but it's a very pertinent question, because over the next few months, we will actually be looking at our volunteer program and looking to boost that up and looking at what further roles within the charities volunteers could take on for us. So that's something that I'd be really, really pleased to consider alongside the rest of the work that we'll be doing in this area.
Perfect. Well, I think that is all the questions. Thank you so much for having so many. It's always nice to have interesting discussions and chats. That is drawing to a close our first session, but don't forget we've got a whole week of sessions. As Austin mentioned, we've got the childhood stroke session this afternoon with a whole panel of stroke survivors and parents of childhood stroke survivors. And just all week we've got some great sessions. So do continue to join us. It really means a lot to us all here at Different Strokes, and have a fantastic week. Thank you, Austin.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching.